Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Random Redshirt podcast. I am Zach, one of the hosts. And with me, as always, is the other host, Chris. What's up, Chris?
Hello, Zach, my great friend. I'm gonna try not to crack up because we were making Yoda impressions, but that was good.
Wait. You
No,
can't say that if you're not going to do it now. Now you have the audience in anticipation.
ooh. Well, what we'll have Grogu like in Yoda like on our next one, and then yeah, have some Grogu Yoda impersonations on a future random Redshirt podcast, maybe.
Yeah, that could be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
That could be very interesting. Yes.
yeah. Please don't unsubscribe. If um
Oh, that's
Great to
true.
be here, Zach. Oh, yes. So happy, great to see you, my friend. Thank you, everyone, for joining us around the interwebs and the world. We love having you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this is your first time to the podcast, welcome. We are just two nerdy guys who like talking about all things nerdy, science fiction, Star Trek, Star Wars, and everything in between. Please be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram and wherever your favorite podcast platform is. You can also find us on YouTube. Unless you're watching us there already, then you probably figured that one out.
Mhm.
But we have a good chunk of our episodes are on YouTube, but not all of them. We have quite a few episodes that are also on the podcast platform because we didn't begin recording with video. So with that being said, also if you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, like, all that stuff you guys hear from everybody else on their YouTube channels. Same spiel from us. But we are here back in a galaxy far, far away as we talk about Ahsoka episode number 3, Time to Fly.
Time to fly.
Uh, this was interesting, Chris, that the name of this episode was called Time to Fly. And also, this episode was the shortest of the 3. I mean, this episode was like barely 30 minutes. It's like just over 30 minutes long. It went really fast.
Oh, I didn't realize it was the shortest episode. You're right.
Yeah.
It did go really fast.
It
Oh,
felt very, very, very short. I mean, the first episode I think was like 50 some minutes, and the second one was like 40 some minutes, and this one was 30. Hopefully, by the end of the series or the end of the season, whatever they're going to call it, we're not down to like a 5-minute episode or something.
very concise episode.
Yeah, that would be very concise. Like, that'd be like a 5 minutes of Michael Bay Transformers explosions.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody didn't get time for that. So,
I know.
yeah. So, Time to Fly is episode number 3, and if you haven't had a chance to yet, you can find the reviews for episode 2 and 1 of Ahsoka below on our channel, or you can go on again your favorite podcast platform where you may be listening to us now, and just scroll down, and you'll find the reviews for this Ahsoka. So, with that being said, Chris, let's jump into episode number 3, Time to Fly.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. You know what I liked about this third episode was that it we get some Jedi mentorship at the beginning of the episode too.
Yeah.
Right? So I like that with Sabine and Ahsoka, which I thought was cool. That is such like a core part of Star Wars, having some mentorship and Jedi mentorship in there. So that was great. Um,
Yeah, it's very interesting. Through the first 3 episodes of Ahsoka, we have found the importance of the relationship building, or the relationship rebuilding in this case, right? Between Sabine and Ahsoka, and Ahsoka and Huyang, and all these different relationships, right, that we've seen among Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars and so forth. And I find this interesting. And I'm curious in your thoughts on this, Chris, because in Ahsoka, right, we've had all this stuff, this relationship going on. And yet I don't feel like these episodes are slow or just dragging or anything. Yet, if we go back to Andor, and if you haven't watched our review of the whole Andor series, please sure to go check that out. It's also on your favorite podcast platform. But with Andor, there was a lot of relationship building, right? A lot of relational stuff going on along with world building, but it was much, much slower. Like almost to the point of, okay, get to the point already with some of this stuff. And I'm a huge Rogue One fan, as some of you may know. And I know you know that as well, Chris. I know you like Rogue One as well. And I just felt like, the anticipation for me for the show was really high because of the setting it's in, right? And we're building up a character who appears in Rogue One. We see him for the first time in that movie, but yet it felt really slow, like it was just crawling along at many moments. Where Ahsoka, I feel like, is accomplishing some of the same stuff, but it doesn't feel that way. I don't know if you've had those thoughts at all or not.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. Andor, when I think about Andor and the time that they were in the prison planet or the
Yeah.
prison area, we both felt like that seemed to span too many episodes than we needed.
Yeah, I
And
needed maybe one episode, right? And just
Mhm.
jump ahead in time and get that.
Yeah, and when you do the world building and you introduce a lot of different characters and a lot of different complexities, that's a difficult task to do because then it gets so large. Like, how do you carry it? How do you carry it forward? Like in a story, it gets to the point where, okay, there's too many characters to learn who they are. Um, I'm easily confused, and I'm easily get confused and forgetful. So I'm gonna forget things. I'm gonna get confused. I'm gonna get lost. And then when that happens, you feel like, okay, now I'm lost, and now I don't know where things are. Now things either I'm left behind or things seem too slow. This particular episode of Ahsoka, um, there were I this is what I felt. Um, there were not as many characters in this episode, which I think was a good thing because then you get the chance for those few characters kind of develop the relationship with each other and have that presence in the episode. I mean, really, it was Ahsoka and Sabine and Huyang, like, carrying most of the episode.
Yeah.
This episode had a lot of action, which was great, but then we're not introducing too many characters in the episode to slow things down.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoy shows when they introduce characters a little bit slower, right? Okay, so a show starts, first episode, right? First couple episodes, and maybe you're getting to know a couple of characters, and then they slowly start bringing in other characters, and they're building either a crew or a group of characters that are going to have relationships that are important to the story and the plot, or other supporting characters, versus some of these shows where they'll just dump a huge group of people at you and you're like, okay, hang on, who's that again? What I'm lost, and you're just trying to play catch up and keep everybody figured out without going, wait a second, who's that or who's that? So
Yeah.
I do like, and I kind of feel with this show so far, it's kind of like that. I mean, we've gotten a few different characters, right? We know, Balin Scroll and his apprentice. We've gotten Morgan Elsbeth, who has come from the first time you met her, which is in The Mandalorian. And we get Ahsoka and Sabine and Hu Yang, but that's kind of like the main character so far. I feel like with some support. I mean, we do have Hera, I guess, as well, but I kind of feel like they did a good job of dropping characters in and building off of that. Now, granted, with this show, it's different because a lot of these characters we know before from Rebels and maybe even Clone Wars. But at the end of the day, it's still nice that they're not just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at you at once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's right. This particular episode was easier for me to digest
Mm.
because I felt like, okay, this was a long chase. There was a lot of action. There didn't necessarily have to be a lot of backstory that I had to know for this particular episode. I felt so this was easier for me to digest. And I was going, okay, they're doing this investigation into the Denob system. They need to find out what's going on. Uh, then they've got all these people chasing them. So I can take
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Good was the episode.
Mm,
That's
indeed.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So this episode opens with Sabine and Hyang, and I found this interesting. You talk about the mentorship, right? We start right away with that, right aboard um, Ahsoka's ship, and you see her beginning to mentor, or not beginning to. She's continuing a mentorship with Sabine, and very interesting. This training session is eerily similar to the one that Luke did in episode 4, A New Hope, right? When he's on board the Millennium Falcon and Obi-Wan is, telling him, feel the force flowing
Mhm.
through you, and all this stuff. So I don't know, did that bring back very, very vivid memories of A New Hope and the training scene that Luke did in the Falcon?
Absolutely, completely. And it must have been intentional on the Ahsoka creators' part. You know when they got the helmet and the shield?
Yeah.
What Sabine said, I have to listen to it again. But I thought, was that verbatim like what Luke said? It was
Yeah,
very
pretty
unusual.
close, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, yeah, because she's like, how can I see with this thing down or something like that? And I think Luke says something, how can I see with the blast shield down or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is we talked about this in episode 1 or part 1, which mentor and apprentice, I think is the name of it, right? How this from what I read, this show has kind of become Dave Filoni's baby.
Mhm.
This is kind of his show, right? He's been directing and writing and all sorts of stuff. Um, and it kind of makes sense being that he worked so closely with George Lucas on Clone Wars. I don't remember if he worked on Rebels. I want to say he did, but it kind of makes sense because Ahsoka was first introduced to us in Star Wars Clone Wars, the animated show,
Yeah.
and so I'm sure Ahsoka plays a very, very important and impactful role in his career, right? With him working with George Lucas and having this character who's become so beloved in the Star Wars universe that she's getting her own live action show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even before, obviously, this came around, right? I mean, Ahsoka has been an incredibly, incredibly popular character among Star Wars fans.
Yeah. Yeah. She has. So, it's interesting. Ahsoka, these first 3 episodes, she has seemed, we mentioned this before, I think she's very reserved. Um, we'll see, we'll see how it plays out. A very different Ahsoka from the Clone Wars version of the young Ahsoka, right? So,
Yeah.
which makes sense, but I didn't expect her to be that reserved when I was thinking
Yeah.
about it.
I mean, we've kind of known that Ahsoka, like her former master, Anakin, right? Her former mentor, um, are both very unique Jedi.
Mhm.
They're not maybe, I don't want to say a stereotypical Jedi, but maybe more of a, common type Jedi. Both very different, very similar in certain regards and very different in other ways. But yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of plays off this idea that, when Ahsoka first shows up, she's not really the greatest at following directions and listening to her master, which sounds kind of like what Anakin was when Obi-Wan first took him under his wing,
Yeah.
right? They had very similarities there. So yeah, but I think you're right, Chris. I think that this very more reserved, stoic version of Ahsoka is definitely interesting. I think she's, from what she's been through, what she's seen, right? I mean, she was there during the Clone Wars. She's able to survive and kind of hide, uh, throughout what we knew as the original trilogy era, right? And all those battles. Very interesting too, though, right? That Ahsoka, I mean, obviously she wasn't created when the original trilogy came out, but what she would have been doing and where she was at during that time
Yeah.
makes you wonder, right? As someone who's a former Jedi, like, obviously, again, she wasn't hadn't been created yet, but in the timeline of things in Star Wars, why didn't she come and help fight for the rebellion against the Empire? I mean, was it because her former mentor was Darth Vader? We already know she fights Darth Vader. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Maybe we'll find out more, like in this. Maybe we'll find out more in this series because I'm curious. Like,
Yeah,
um, because you've
I
got
was
that. Yeah. Yeah.
no, go ahead.
You've got that circumstance with Ahsoka. Also, what was Balin's skull, and he went into hiding, right? Or after Order 66 and
Yeah,
was doing something. So you've got
and then he turned dark.
then turned dark, right? So you
Yeah,
got these group of Jedi just that were out there doing their own thing. Um,
and in
yeah,
Mandalorian,
yeah,
remember Ahsoka meets up with Luke, so they had to have known each other prior, right? The question is what was she doing during that Galactic Civil War era of the original trilogy, right? Like, I would love it if they did some kind of flashbacks where they show what it was that she was doing during that time, right? Was she in hiding like Yoda, or not like, yeah, like Yoda and others, or was she on the fringes of the war, kind of acting as a, some type of, liaison to the rebellion? I don't know. It'd be really interesting to kind of figure out what maybe she was doing then,
Mhm.
and help kind of tie that in, and why now she's coming out in this post Return of the Jedi era is what we believe this takes place, and wanting to be involved with the New Republic and all this stuff.
Yeah, I hope they flush that out. I think that'd be worth it to flush out.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
I'd love, in those flashbacks, I'd love it if they'd be able to explore some more Jedi lore.
Mm,
If some of that Jedi were in when they went into hiding or whatever they were doing during the Galactic Empire, if they were able to kind of explore some of the origins, right?
yeah.
Love it if they'd be able to do that in the show.
You mean grumpy Jedi who drinks blue milk directly from the animal didn't, and the lore there didn't do it for you?
No, that lore did not do it. No. Oh my goodness. For anybody. Didn't do it for anybody.
Right. Well, that's true. Most people, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very interesting too here, right? So you have Hu Yang here, who is not much of a believer in Sabine. He does not. He's like, she's just not very good. Yeah, I think he even says that she's not bad, but not good either.
Yeah, I actually had a problem with Hu Yang in this first part of the episode,
Hmm.
because he says that. He also says later, um in his conversation with Ahsoka, like he's being kind of condescending or derogatory toward Sabine, like, yeah, why did you ever choose her to be a to be your apprentice, or she could never make it. And I had a real problem with that, because it was just the episode before, I felt, where Hu Yang was in his conversation with Sabine, encouraging Sabine, right, to become an apprentice again and start
Yeah.
studying the Jedi arts again. So I thought that was very contradictory, you know.
Well, was it? It was in one of the first two episodes, right, where Hu Yang says, like, of all the Jedi Padawans or whatever he's seen, or Jedi people, people who are attempting to be Jedi's, she's the worst of them all, and all this. So yeah, I can see what you're talking about with that.
Yeah, yeah, and she had the least aptitude for the Force, but
Yeah.
he was the one that had that statement, like, well, the only time you're wasting is your own, and you have to decide. And he was holding out the lightsaber for Sabine, and I thought that was a turning point for Sabine to really like look within herself and kind of decide, oh, okay, maybe I want to restart my apprenticeship. So yeah, Hu Yang's statements in this episode bothered me. I like that in here.
Well, it makes me wonder if the stuff that he's saying to her when he's in the presence of Ahsoka is meant to be like a reverse motivational thing, right? Like, where he's trying to act as a skeptic in order to try to make Sabine say, no, 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 I'm gonna do it in spite of you. Almost a different way of motivating. Not that I agree with this way that he's his approach, but this almost kind of, reverse motivation, if that makes any kind of sense.
That does. I hope that is what it is.
Yeah.
If
I
that
mean,
is
he's a
what it is, yeah.
droid too, right? I mean, it's like in Star Trek with Data and droids in Star Wars. A lot of these droids don't exactly have tact and stuff. So, it doesn't surprise me that a droid is saying. I mean, think about in Rogue One with K2SO. He wasn't too happy about Jin getting a gun, and made Andor Cassian
Hmm.
very aware of his feelings about Jin being there and the mission they're doing. So it's not the first time we've seen a droid kind of be a little rude, right? Even C3PO will say stuff and you're like, what? You
Yeah.
know? So it kind of follows that trend, I think. Um, but yeah, this is an interesting kind of opening scene here in this episode, right? With the training going on. There was a moment where the closet or a door or something opens, right? And then you see those little hovering target droids like you see in A New Hope. So there was a
Yeah.
little bit of an Easter egg there as well.
Yeah, that was good. It was nice for them to connect it, So, yeah, it was nice. I definitely enjoy those Jedi mentorship moments. So they need to
Yeah.
be in all of the Star Wars scenes. Not all of them, but movies.
Yeah. Anytime there's Jedi involved, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we cut from this scene to, and then we pick it up where we see Hera attempting to get support from the New Republic.
Yeah, I watched that scene a couple times and I'm kind of conflicted on it. So, I mean, so Hera's just asking to say, hey, we want to find out what's going on. We want to chase down Morgan. I could just use a task force to go and check it out. Give me the support, give me a task force. It doesn't seem like she's asking for like a lot. You know what?
No.
Like, and it just you've had what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 senators like saying, well,
Well, I think you had four, and then you had
or,
Mon Mothma. But Mon Mothma, I love the fact that Mon Mothma has been made as the Supreme Chancellor. I think is what the title they're using again of the
Mhm.
New Republic.
Yeah,
Now we did get into a bit of an issue here when they gave Senator Palpatine that title, and then he took that power. But of course, he was Darth Sidious on the side, right?
yeah,
Mon Mothma's not that way, and give credit to the play of Mon Mothma in the Andor show, right? We got a lot of her in Andor. And what
yeah,
I loved was the building up of her character more because she was also in Rogue One, right? But the building up of her character and seeing kind of the life that she's coming from and the life that she's living, but she's living a double life, right? She's living as this, oh, I'm this citizen of the Galactic Republic, before it becomes the Empire and everything, right? And I'm I'm being a good citizen and everything, but then secretly behind closed doors, even against her daughter and her husband, she's helping to plot this rising up of the rebellion. So it's very evident because even though we get very little Mon Mothma in the original trilogy, in fact, I think we only get her in that one scene in Return of the Jedi.
yeah,
It's very evident the importance of her character to the rebellion and the cause.
yeah. So it's good that they're flushing it out, building her up here. Um,
But I love that we're getting
because
her again,
yeah, yeah,
right?
I
The
agree.
continued role and importance of her character to the previous rebellion as well as this new republic they're trying to form in the wake of the collapse of the Empire.
Yeah, I agree. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I didn't buy that the senators would be like preventing Hera from just having a task force to check this out. It just seemed after all they had went and they're using the argument like, oh, the Empire is defeated. We don't see any danger. Everyone's tired of war. I didn't buy that really they would just immediately let their guard down. And there's some um probably hidden motivations and duplicity there. That's I think that they were trying to make that obvious. But I was just like, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the especially the one senator that you could tell Hera must have had some kind of history with.
Yeah.
Didn't get a lot. Remember, because when she asked him, she's like, "Oh, have you ever fought in a war or whatever?" And he's like, "Well, no." And
Yeah.
then she's like, "Exactly. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're
Yeah.
you're a bureaucrat." And it's very evident, right? You see the struggle of probably a similar struggle what happened in the old Galactic Republic before the Empire took reins, and now this new republic, right? That you have these senators who are playing their bureaucratic part, um, and you have the military side trying to provide that military protection in order to stabilize things and provide that sort of stuff. And you kind of mentioned this, but I'll kind of reword it the way I would the way I've been thinking of it is, I think the senators are risk adverse,
Risk averse. Yeah, that's
risk
great.
averse. Yeah, meaning that they're very hesitant to do anything of any risk. Right. Okay. So the empire's fallen. but Hera knows better. She's out on the front lines, right? She's doing things that the Empire's fallen, and she's saying, look, we need to go figure this out. We need to go look into this, because if we don't want something to rise up or something to start causing issues. And they're like, whoa, 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 we don't want any war or anything like that. Well, she's trying, I think, doesn't she even say she's trying to prevent war or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, there's two different varying viewpoints here from a political standpoint and a military standpoint.
Yeah. Yep. If the senators are, if the new republic won't fare well if all the senators in that are like that, it's not going to fare well for very long. My gosh. Yeah.
Exactly. And we cannot pass over the wonderful little scene in the hallway outside between Hera and her son, Jason, spelled with a C, Jacen, not the way we would spell it, Jason, who she had with the late Jedi Kanan Jarrus from Rebels. So we do get to see the son in this, which I think is great. But yeah, it's very obvious that the senators in this case are blind. They do not see the need for, as you said, Chris, to do anything that could cause any kind of risk or whatever. And they're representing the people of the Republic and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but I think you guys are. It's like, I think you put it perfectly. That they're I think getting a little bit maybe too laxed, right? A little too comfortable. It hasn't been that long since the Empire fell. If this is supposed to be 9 to 10 years after Return of the Jedi, and if they're already getting to this point, okay,
exactly. It hasn't been that long, guys. And
yeah. Well, and I think one of the senators mentioned, that they think that another reason why they don't want this whole little quest that Hera wants to go on to happen is they think she's being blinded by her drive to go out and find Ezra. And that her belief that Ezra is still alive. So, this story's happened before. And the question is whether she really is blinded by that drive to find him, or whether she has, a solid reason. And I think as an audience, we know she has a solid reason.
Yeah, she's got a solid reason. And for the senator to say something that crass, I mean, they could just say, hey, well, can you give us an independent report that corroborates her? But of course they're not going to say that.
Yeah. But this scene in particular between her and the senator, and then I mean, obviously Mon Mothma and Hera have a really good relationship. You see that kind of affection for each other in the initial moment of this meeting. But I do think it's important to point out that, unfortunately, the way the show has been written, there is an expectation that you have watched everything before this. And so I think for audiences who haven't, and we're in that boat, it leaves you going, okay, well, I'm watching this, but I'm kind of confused as to why this is this way, or why are these two people have this kind of relationship, because you haven't watched everything. I kind of wish they would have taken more time and maybe flush some of that out in this live action form for things that you need to know later on, versus just saying, oh yeah, well, you have to we're expecting that you have watched that stuff in order to be in the up and up with this show.
Yeah. And if she's not to stay too long on this point, but if she's a general, I mean, can't she she's got a whole bunch of resources. Can't she just,
go do it?
Go do it? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the Mother May I thing. I don't know. Maybe they have some kind of, they have something set up to try and keep power from being given too much to one person or stuff like that, although they have a Supreme Chancellor or Chancellor in Mon Mothma, but maybe there's something because of lessons learned in the past that they're trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But I do agree. Yeah. I think if she's a general, she should be able to have the power just to go out and put a task force together and go do something and say, hey, by the way, senators, we're going to go do this. We'll give you a report after and let you know what we find.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you there as well. I do think, though, the actress Mary Elizabeth Winstead, or I think is how you say it, the actress who plays Hera, which is Ewan McGregor's wife. I really like her in this role. I think she's done really well. The makeup is not so sure about, but her job playing the character I think has been really good so far.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I like her as a character. I I have okay, I haven't confused her, but I was like, oh well, I guess it's almost like an Orion woman too,
Orion
because
slave
she's
girl,
green.
yeah.
Yeah, because she's green.
She's a
So
Twi'lek.
yeah,
They say
yeah.
it. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, pretty good point there.
yeah,
Um,
but she does a good job.
yeah, I agree. So we get that scene meeting, and then she leaves, and then you could tell she's frustrated. Hera's like, I can't do this. She's very much not a bureaucrat, right? You can tell she's not a politician. She is a no nonsense. We know that from Rebels. She is a no nonsense kind of character. She doesn't have time for all the pomp and circumstance stuff. And I think she even said going to that meeting that she couldn't stand those types of meetings, those types of
Yeah,
conversations. So we go from there, and we go very quickly over to a hollow call that she makes to Ahsoka. And we get right back to Ahsoka and Huyang and Sabine, and talking about training and everything else. And then we get this scene where Ahsoka and Sabine sit down for a conversation.
yeah, yeah. We do. Um, yeah, I think so. With Hera's hollow call us to the crew, Ahsoka and Sabine, Hera's saying, "Hey, I'm not going to be there."
Yeah, they're
I
on their own.
they're on their own. I expect that at some point we'll see Hera again, just kind of maybe disobey orders and then go to help them at some point.
Yeah.
But at least for here, yeah, they're on their own. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they get right. So we've got Sabine and Ahsoka like on the ship, and then they get I'm trying to remember what their conversation was right before they get chased by the Jedi there. But that's right. They Huyang and Ahsoka have a conversation about Sabine,
Yeah.
and this is interesting because Huyang is remarking about Sabine not being incompetent in the ways of the Force and doesn't seem like should be a proper Jedi. And so again, this is why I didn't like Huyang in this episode. But Ahsoka makes a great point that hey, all of these years of how they trained the Jedi in the past, it didn't work. Like the Jedi failed, remember? So
Yeah.
she doesn't need Sabine to be like all of the other Jedi. She needs her to be like herself and be a different kind of Jedi. And so I thought that was good. That was important. And I liked that he says that Ahsoka says, I need Sabine to be herself.
Yeah. She doesn't even need her to be a Jedi. She just needs her to be able to be competent in the Force,
Yeah.
because she knows that in order to beat Balin and Shin, who is the apprentice, right, and Morgan Elsbeth, she knows that if Sabine can at least be competent, that's going to help her and help them as a whole be able to succeed, and
Yeah.
hopefully either finding Thrawn first or stopping them from getting to Thrawn.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So they get to that planet. They come out of the hyperspace, and
Yeah, I think this is Deneb, right? They're coming to.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and they're getting closer, and they're coming closer to seeing what that object is, and Huang saying, "Hey, let's get closer so we can scan what it is," and they're all pretty much hypothesizing that yeah, that looks like some sort of hyperspace ring, and they're right. It is a hyperspace ring, and Huang saying,
it's
"Get closer, get closer."
massive. It
Yeah,
is like I think the image that they put into it from towards the end of the episode number 2, it doesn't look maybe that big,
yeah.
but then you see it in this episode, especially as the ship gets closer, and you're like, oh, like as George Takei would say,
Oh
oh
my.
my,
Whew.
like it
Yeah,
is huge. Yeah.
yeah.
Imagine
Uh,
Yoda was the master and George Takei was the apprentice, and Yoda's like,
yeah.
like, George, you must use the Force, and he's like, oh my, I must get better. Yeah, that'd be, anyways,
Yeah.
little mashup there, but yeah,
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, I was as we were going. Okay, I knew it was the hyperspace ring, but I also was thinking, okay, please don't make it another Death Star, because they're saying it's
Oh
enormous, it's enormous. I
yeah.
was like, don't make it another Death Star. It can't be another Death Star. So it was good. It wasn't. So it
Yeah.
makes sense.
But here's my thing about this ship, okay? Bigger isn't always better when it comes to ships, right?
Mhm.
And this is some huge ring that's got really, really big engines. So because they has really, really big engines, that means that it's able to go to other galaxies much faster. Like I don't know that I buy that. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Star Wars is not
Yeah.
it's not scientifically accurate, right? It is, as you said, Chris, very eloquently when we did our part 1 review, I think, was that it is space opera,
Mhm.
right? It is not meant to be scientifically accurate. It's entertainment. But there's a part of me goes, just because the engines are huge doesn't mean how it's gonna go from one galaxy to the next. You know, I guess maybe it needs the big engines to be able to travel through some type of special hyperspace network. I don't know. It just to me doesn't seem like it all connects, even for Star Wars.
Yeah, it's interesting. And if the space whales can navigate, if the space whales can just migrate, that's what I felt that they were inferring in this episode from galaxy to galaxy. Um, we'll learn more. I have no idea if space whales go through like some sort of hyperspace
I
hyperdrive,
don't know.
or if they
I
just like swim from
The
galaxy
space
to
whales
galaxy.
thing, the space whales thing seems really bizarre to me. Really bizarre. I don't know. I guess we'll see how it all shakes out in the end. But
Yeah, we will. It felt the space whales felt Star Wars to me. Um, because I was like, okay, we're gonna get this very creative, interesting creature that is just kind of out there. Kind of felt like that huge worm in Empire Strikes Back. All right, it's huge
oh
creature
yeah,
here.
the space
Yeah,
slug. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I was like, all right, space whales. That's
Yeah, but okay, but that thing's living in an asteroid. It's not traveling to other galaxies.
fine.
So, like I said, we'll see how everything shakes out in the end.
Yeah, yeah, we will. So we get a dogfight with some space battles, which is nice to see. So the space battles made me feel like, yeah, this is a cool Star Wars show. We've got to have a lot of space battles here. So we've got Shin like she's controlling um some other bad guys um chasing Ahsoka and
Well, including
chasing
that
Sabine.
dude who Ahsoka fought on Corellia.
Yeah, you say his name.
Marok, I think was his name or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Is he in the cartoon Rebels? I don't know.
I don't remember off the top of my head if he is. He might be. I mean, he's
Okay,
named, so it's possible he was, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
gotcha. So we've got the dogfight there and the space chase, and we've got Sabine going into the tail gun, which reminded me a lot about um, A New Hope. I don't know how
Yep.
you felt about it, but I
Yeah,
did.
with Luke and the tail gun. Yep.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. And Sabine's always got to say those comments, like she gets in the tail gun and she's okay. She's in the tail gun and she makes that comment to Ahsoka, like, "Well, you had to delete all my presets or something like that."
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. Well, she shot out of the tail gun before in
yeah.
Rebels. I mean, there's several episodes and scenes where she's manning the tail gun, so it's not the first time. So that makes
Oh,
sense.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So I thought it was a good series of scenes where they're shooting down their chasers, and then you get the interaction between Hu Yang and Ahsoka and Sabine, because things are not going well for them, and Hu Yang says it's not going to go if it goes, it's not going to go well if it continues like this for very much longer, and you've got Ahsoka that kind of comes to that realization, like, okay, we're gonna help Sabine out, we're gonna do what Sabine says. So I liked that. I liked that. I thought that was a good moment. And then they're able to successfully shoot down most of their chasers and then get closer to Morgan in the giant hyperspace space ring.
Yeah, with like giant turbo laser like batteries on the top of their ring shooting.
Yeah.
And yeah, that ring to me is kind of weird. Yeah. Does it remind you a little bit of the Halo ring at all?
Oh, I wasn't thinking about that,
It
but
kind of reminds me a little bit of it.
now that you say it, maybe it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. The thing is weird. I get the idea, but I don't know if I'm sold on this idea that, yeah, hey, with this big ring and it's going to travel another galaxy and find someone, in this case, Thrawn. And it's got these big guns on them and it's really massive and yeah, strange.
yeah. You know, in episode 2, when they were down, and I'm trying to figure out what, maybe they were down on the same planet with all the red trees, because they were in this spot, um, and Balin had the sphere, and he puts the sphere on this pedestal, and the map comes up, and he uses this term. He says, "Oh, the reflex point," or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought kind of the structure that they were in on the planet would be what they get beamed up to go to the other galaxy.
Did
But
you
it
just say beamed up, man? You just crossed the streams.
did. Oh, I did say beamed up.
That's okay.
Oh
That's
yeah,
okay.
energized up. No, that doesn't work either.
Of all the people, I'll be the least one to be offended by you saying beamed up when we're talking about Star Wars. Don't worry.
Yeah. So this is just where maybe some of our audience can help us, but I'm confused. I don't know what it meant by Balin saying, "Hey, reflex point," and when they were down on the planet, and where he put the sphere, and it's showing this big map, and um they talked about Morgan being a witch, and
Yep.
these ancient kind of fairy tales where they could migrate to the other galaxy. So, but it seems like now they've got to build this giant space ring hyperdrive
Yeah.
monster to get them there. So,
Yeah, very interesting. But we do meet the space whales, right? They're called the Purgle, which is from
Virgo.
Rebels.
Okay.
Right? It's where Ezra goes with that flagship and Thrawn and everything like that. So that's these giant and mythical space whales, who I guess can go through hyperspace. And the last time they saw the Purgle was when they were, taking Ezra and Thrawn when we don't know where. Um, but very interesting, so they land their ship right down on the planet,
Mhm.
and they turn everything off, including Hu Yang, because apparently it's Jedi protocol to turn everything off, so there's no power signature or anything coming from them, harder to track, right? And then they're able to get the ship fixed, and they take off. But they had that kind of dogfight, through the clouds, and all of a sudden there's those whales floating around. They're trying to avoid that. How they are able to lose. Um, that's how they're able to lose Shin and her cronies
Yeah.
in their ships, and then they take off to go meet back up with Morgan Elsbeth and all that. So very interesting. Um, but also, I'm curious in your thoughts here, Chris, because the forest was kind of like a blood red.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I don't know if that's some type of foreshadowing or what.
Oh.
Um, but I found that interesting that they chose that type of color pattern for the forest versus just your standard colors.
Yeah. I thought it was a really pretty color palette. Um, so I liked it. Like this visually this episode I thought was great, with the space battles, even the space whales, and the color of the planet and the trees. Um, Maybe they just chose it because it is aesthetically, like, it pops out, and
Yeah,
it's such a unique aesthetic to have in the show, and very, very vibrant. So I'm feeling maybe it was that.
could have been. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but it was it was pretty. I thought it gave it a real classy, unique look.
yeah.
Uh, so this is the planet that I thought Balin and Shin and Morgan were on when they put the map sphere on the
Hmm.
pedestal, and the map
Yeah, I
came up.
think it was. I think it
Okay.
was. Yeah.
Okay.
which would make sense, right? Because the ring is up in orbit around this planet.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure this is where they did that.
Okay.
Deneb.
Deneb.
Yeah.
What did you think about when they were in the middle of the dogfight and then Ahsoka goes out? Ahsoka goes out on the
Oh
surface of the
yeah, we
ship.
haven't talked about her little space suit that includes her headpiece and everything. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the editing on that whole thing was a bit weird.
Yeah.
It didn't, I don't feel like it flowed very well, the
Mhm.
whole scene. And then her just deciding to like, hey, I'm going outside, like, and goes and grabs a spacesuit and then walks out on the ship's hull and starts deflecting shots coming in from other ships and trying to create a distraction so they can repair the ship. And yeah, it was, yeah, the episode. I mean, this episode, I enjoyed the episode, but there was definitely some kind of eyebrow raising moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I did. I felt that lightsaber space scene where Ahsoka is on the outside of the ship. I think that was hard to do live action. I could see that animated. I could
Yeah.
see them doing it animated, but live action, I was like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
that goes.
Yeah, that was interesting. I don't. Do you remember how many episodes they're doing for this? Are they doing 6 or 8? Because if they're doing 6, we're already halfway through the show.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah,
I don't remember either if they announced that or not. Maybe we're getting 10. I don't know. But it's interesting to see kind of the state of affairs and where things are at post Return of the Jedi, right? And the state of the Empire. Obviously, I mean, we're 3 episodes in and we haven't seen Thrawn yet, which makes sense, right? He's not going to probably show up till the very end. And then based on, I'm sure, the number of streams and number of times the show has been watched, will determine whether they bring the show back. Like they've mentioned with Andor about doing more Andor and doing more Obi-Wan, even though those are supposed to be a limited series.
yeah,
I don't know what else you can do with Obi-Wan because he lives on Tatooine. He keeps an eye on Luke and Leia. Well, more Luke we know than Leia. So I don't know what they're going to do there. Cassian, there's probably a lot of stuff they could do more as they build him up towards meeting Jin and beginning to work for the rebellion as he joins there towards the end of the series. But this show, there's a lot of stuff they could do with this character because they're now post Return of the Jedi. They're not in Clone Wars and Rebels era, quote unquote, anymore. So there's, I think, a lot of things they could do with this, and I'll be curious to see the direction that they continue to go.
yeah. Me too. Now, Luke Skywalker should be around somewhere, right? So
I would think if you're now if you are following the timeline for the new trilogy that we don't like, Luke, I believe at this point is either preparing to or already training, younglings, Jedi, right?
yeah,
And then
maybe.
he has Ben Solo, aka soon to be Kylo Ren, who decides to veer off to the dark side. Or at this point, at least, maybe at this point, Han and Leia have had their baby, have had Ben, or I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how that all fits in, or if we would see a young Luke, a CGI'd young Luke again, like we did in Mandalorian.
That's what I was thinking too. Because if Luke Skywalker gets wind of, hey, there's some shady stuff happening with these Imperial loyalists, and they're up to this shady deal, he'd just come in and say, no, let's not have any of that. And
well, look on this book, right? Heir to the Empire. There's Thrawn and there's Luke.
Yeah.
So the question is now, obviously, this show's about Ahsoka, but the question is do we get Luke? Right? Do we get Luke that comes in at this point? I think you're right. It's a really good point to bring up, Chris, that at some point, if this stuff happening, at some point you got to think, okay, you can't imagine Luke is going to just sit by idly. He would get wind of this.
Yeah.
Right. Especially the New Republic. And, he knows Mon Mothma. At some point you'd think Luke would have to get involved, but maybe they're going to kind of keep that to as little as possible in the show. Cause obviously they'd have to bring in, they bring in Mark Hamill, they got to CGI his face and there's a lot of stuff they'd have to do. So maybe we'll see Luke. When we saw Luke in Mandalorian, I never expected to see Luke in the Mandalorian.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, we got a lot of generals that are still alive from Return of the Jedi. That would be they'd be like, hey, look, there's some bad stuff that happened in Return of the Jedi. We're not gonna have that happen again. We're gonna like
Yeah.
lay down
Hey,
what
where's
to do.
Admiral Akbar when
That's
you
what I was
need him?
thinking. Yeah,
It's a trap.
it's a trap.
Yeah.
You would
Where's
know.
he at? We know he survived the Battle of Endor.
Hmm.
You know, he was on home one in Endor at Endor. We know the home one didn't get blown up. He survives the battle. So what the heck? Where's he at? Where's the squid head, aka Admiral Akbar, when you need him?
Yeah.
Where's Nine Numb? I mean, he wasn't a general, but you know, the co-pilot for Lando and the Falcon. Where's he at? I mean, I don't think he'd be a general, but he'd probably be somewhere up in the New Republic. I mean, there's a lot of characters they could bring back from that era. It's like, hey, these people all fought. A majority of them fought during the Galactic Civil War. They know. I mean, Ahsoka was around during that time too. We don't know what her role was in the Galactic Civil War, but we know she was around. So what did they do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not gonna
A lot of
stand for that.
questions, more questions than answers at this point.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So this has been nagging at me for a little bit as I get the first during these first three episodes with Sabine's character. I want to see how you feel when I express this, but I almost feel like kind of feel like right now it's like Sabine is the main character and Ahsoka is a supporting character.
Yeah, I could see where you're coming with that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am for me, that's like, oh, I want Ahsoka to be the main character, but I felt like these first three episodes, it kind of seems like Sabine's the main character. Um, but we'll see how things progress.
Yeah.
But
I
that,
mean, yeah, I think I think that they're emphasizing the importance of the relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine, because clearly
Mhm.
Sabine's going to play an important role, right, in what they're doing. So I think building that relationship does make it appear as though Sabine is kind of the main character at some point. So I could see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yep. So
But yeah, lots to come still. We don't know
yeah.
what's gonna, I mean, obviously we know Thrawn eventually is gonna be found because he's in the trailer, right? And we have to kind of assume at this point that Thrawn is going to show up back in the local galaxy of Star Wars. And then where it goes from there is yet to be seen. But I'm hoping that with the return of Thrawn, that we are going to get um some semblance of expanded universe book stuff, right? Like they're gonna try to tie some of that in and so forth. Now, if they do that, though, that probably is going to affect their trilogy, right? So maybe they won't do that. Maybe they'll find a way to loop it all in together. I don't know, but there's still definitely a lot of stuff to come, and a lot of things we're gonna hopefully learn and find out, and hopefully a lot of questions that are going to be answered.
Hmm. We'll see. Hopefully it, yeah. Hopefully it'll be something good. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's been some good stuff on the show, some head scratching stuff and stuff. You're like, whoa, really? But there's been some good things too.
Hmm.
So it's been enjoyable so far. I will say it's not. I don't feel like the show's dragging or stagnant or taking forever to get to the point, which is a good thing. I think it's progress. Whether you agree with the plot or the storylines and stuff, that's another thing. But at least that I feel like we're progressing and we're moving the story along, and we're not just sitting in one spot twiddling our thumbs.
Yeah. End of the episode so far, this is the one I like the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably have to agree with you on that one. So, yeah, but anyway, this has been our episode 3 discussion review. Obviously, we didn't talk about every little detail. We didn't talk about every Easter egg. That's okay. Just kind of a wave top of each of the episodes and kind of our thoughts and what we saw and what we liked, what we didn't like, our usual stuff. If you've ever watched any of our reviews of individual episodes of Picard or Strange New Worlds, feel free to head to your favorite podcast platform or YouTube to check those out, and you'll see kind of the similar thing we do. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching or listening all over the globe and the interwebs, as you say, Chris. We very much appreciate it, and we look forward to bringing you review of the next couple, because we're gonna have to take a little break here because of some travel and scheduling. But we'll be back as soon as possible with reviews of the next couple of episodes of Ahsoka and let you know what we think about those as well.
Looking forward to it. That will be excellent, my friend.
That's
And
right. We
thank you.
win. We win.
Muy bien.
That's right. So, anyways, thank you all so much. Take care, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Random Redshirt podcast.